Good evening and welcome, everyone. I am Raven L. Hill, president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Xi Omega chapter, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's program on behalf of our 660 members. As we wrap up Women's History Month, we've had the honor this week of witnessing history in the making as we've watched the confirmation hearings for the first Black woman nominated to the Supreme Court. We know beyond any doubt that when women lead, we all win. Tonight is the first in a new series sponsored by Xi Omega Chapter, The Art of Advocacy Leadership, and we have some dynamic speakers to kick it off. Over the course of the year, we will help you find and refine your voice and strategies as we seek to uplift and empower our community. Thank you again for coming, and I hope this won't be the last time we see you. At this time, I will turn the program over to LaKeela Stemmons, chairman of Xi Omega's Connection and Social Action Committee and a powerhouse in her own right. And she'll get us started. LaKeela?
Thank you so much, President Raven Hill. I am truly excited about tonight's panel discussion. As Raven previously stated, this is the perfect apex to a week where Black excellence was front and center as we watched the confirmation hearings of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. To be seen, represented, and affirmed is a beautiful thing. We also saw and felt the microaggressions and flat out disdain that we are met with on a daily basis from so many as Black women. However, Judge Jackson responded with grace, transparency, and stood firm on her own record. So tonight, I hope you leave empowered after hearing from an amazing panel of women who are some of this nation's top advocates to use your civic voice to create change and make an impact in your own communities. It is an honor and privilege to introduce to some and present to others Mary Elliott, who will be our moderator for this evening. Mary is a curator of American slavery at the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture. She co-created the museum's Slavery and Freedom inaugural exhibition, and she's a team member of the museum's Slave Rex project. Mary also has curated and wrote the special broadsheet section of the award-winning New York Times featured publication entitled The 1619 Project. Mary, thank you for joining us, and I'm going to turn this program over to you.
Thank you, LaKeela. I deeply appreciate it. It's really an honor to be here tonight and to moderate this very important and timely discussion. Black women's stories are often left untold, buried under the misogyny and racism that we face every day. The silencing of our voices has a detrimental impact on us, our families, and our community. Tonight, we begin with an advocacy series in hopes of shifting the narrative by equipping you with the tools necessary to amplify your voice and harness the power of compelling storytelling. Storytelling is perhaps the oldest, most powerful tool to affect change in our society. Storytelling for Black people goes as far back as the griots in Western Africa during the period even before the time of the transatlantic slave trade. Tonight, we are joined by some phenomenal Black women who are leading on all levels, who know firsthand the power behind using your voice to persuade and move people to action. Here to give their insight and share their experiences are some dynamic women: Robin Nunn, Advisory Neighborhood Commissioner, District of Columbia, Ward 2; Hope Goins, Majority Staff Director of the United States House of Representatives Committee on Homeland Security; Joi O, Chaney, Executive Director, Washington Bureau and Senior Vice President, Policy and Advocacy at National Urban League; and Di Brown, Senior Director of Regional Strategy, Young Invincibles. Welcome, ladies. It's an honor to have you here with us this evening, and we are looking forward to you dropping those all-important pearls of wisdom. Before we get started, let's take care of a few housekeeping items. Please share this feed with your family and friends. Let us know where you are joining us from. Shout out all across the country and hopefully from abroad. And finally, if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section and we will be sure to get to them and make sure that they're asked and answered later in the webinar. So let's begin. Hope Goins, Majority Staff Director of the United States House of Representatives Committee on Homeland Security. We are going to begin tonight with a leadership spotlight of one of our panelists, Attorney Hope Goins. Hope, your resume is impeccable, from being the most senior advisor to Committee Chairman Benny G. Thompson on all matters related to the oversight of the Department of Homeland Security, which affects all of us. You've supervised the negotiation of key Homeland Security legislation, and you've represented the United States Department of State on delegations to over 20 nations. That's pretty impressive. And most recently, on International Women's Day, you added another title to your resume, which is equally impressive. Author, with the release of your now best-selling book, The Adventures of Chloe and Chris, The Three Branches of Government. I have to applaud you. This is a tremendous background, and it truly does speak volumes to the work that African American women have been doing for years, both locally, nationally, abroad, and reaching a cross-section of people intergenerationally. So let me ask you, tell us why it is important for you to have written this book.
Well, I thank you so much, and thank you to the Xi Omega chapter for having me. I'm actually a member of the Xi Omega chapter, and thank you to Xi Omega chapter and our guest for tuning in tonight. I felt like we were getting away from things. I have worked on Capitol Hill for almost 15 years now, and the feedback, the conversations that I would have when I would have conversations with people in my family or friends or people that I would bump into at different organizations and different meetings, we did not seem to have a grasp on. People would ask me, do you work for the government? And I'm like, of course, I work for the House of Representatives. I make the laws. But we didn't have a hold on civics. We didn't have the foundations. I think that, and we also had some ideas about the presidency, that the presidency held the keys and could do whatever the president wanted to do. We even saw some of that misguidedness about civics in some of yesterday's hearings and the day before yesterday's hearings of Judge Brown Jackson, her confirmation hearings. So I was like, we need to get back to the basics. And what better way to get back to the basics than with children? Children, early learners, they can be more conscious citizens when they learn about this at an early age. We live in America, we live under the Constitution, and we need to know how these things work. And I wrote the book, put it in rhyme, put it in something easy to understand. So hopefully their children and their parents will be able to get this learning tool. It's a good foundation to teach us about the Constitution and to teach us about how the federal government works.
Well, I'm really excited and appreciative of your good work. I am an attorney in addition to serving as a curator. And so one of my classes I loved in law school was actually constitutional law. And what's really important, I'm going to tell my age, but back in the day, we had Schoolhouse Rock, and we all remember the song, I'm Just a Bill Sitting Here on the Steps of Capitol Hill. And so to have a book that reaches, again, intergenerationally and explains in many ways a civic education, which sometimes, there's that concern that folks aren't getting that in the classroom all the time and learning all of the details of how government works, how they can be part of, civic action, all of that. And really what's equally important is that it's not limited to a certain party. Civic engagement crosses over whether you're an independent, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican. So this is very important because it allows young people to understand how government works and think about where they want to play a role in our government, right?
Right.
So I think that's great.
And I do want to add, you're right. Yes, I'm a Bill came out years ago with Schoolhouse Rock. But one thing that was also important to me for my book was to actually have characters, to actually have children. So many children's books feature objects. Now they feature, there were great children's books, but they feature objects, they feature animals. And I really felt that it was necessary to have this through the lens of actual children, people that when other children read, they see their classmate exploring DC and exploring the three branches of government.
Very exciting. Well, how can we purchase your book? And how can people find you on social media? Because we want to keep up with you and we want to know when your next book drops.
Oh, well, I have a LinkedIn page. My name, Hope Goins. My handle is /Hope Goins. The Adventures of Chloe and Chris is on Instagram. And the book can be purchased at Barnes & Noble online, Walmart online, Target online, and Amazon online. And if you have any classrooms or organizations that are looking for books or have an Amazon wish list, add me on there. I think I think the book would be a valued addition.
Thank you so much. So, Black women have long been the defenders of our homes, our communities, and our democracy. We have been this country's moral compass, yet our voices have gone unheard when it comes to the policies and laws that are important to us and impact our communities, leaving us vulnerable. Yes, there have been some voices that have come forward that have made a difference, but a great majority of us often go unheard while we're busy working on the ground, doing grassroots, local government, national government, but there's still many more people, whether it's the church mothers, the PTA folks, you name them, working diligently, but not always getting the spotlight. Tonight, you will hear from women who spend day in and day out working hard to ensure that we have a seat at the table and that our voices are heard. Ladies, please share with us a little bit more about yourself in 60 seconds or less and how our attendees can follow you on social media. Let's start with Robin Nunn.
Hi, everyone. 60 seconds. Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Raven Hill, Akilah Simmons, and all my co-panelists for tonight's presentation. I'm Robin Nunn. I'm originally from the DC area and call the DuPont Circle area home. I'm a lawyer, like so many others here tonight. I'm a partner at the law firm Morgan Lewis, where I lead the banking practice. I'm deeply passionate about promoting financial inclusion and access to credit. I'm also an advisory neighborhood commissioner in DC and ran in 2020 and appeared on the same ticket as Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden. And last and certainly not least, I'm a proud member of Xi Omega chapter and was initiated into Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority at Xi Lambda chapter at Dartmouth College. Following me on social media is a little tough. I'm not necessarily on social media too much, but I do use LinkedIn. So you can search for Robin Nunn and find me there. I'm trying to get a little bit better, but for right now, that's probably the best way to look me up, but I'm always available on cell or email.
Thank you so much, Robin. And I love that you are an ANC member, such an important position. So let's go to Joi O. Chaney. And Joi, I have to tell you, I have connections to the National Urban League and all these government organizations, and I'm really proud to have all of you on here. So Joi, if we could hear from you, 60 seconds or less.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm a proud member of Xi Omega chapter, have been for a very long time. And I'm an initiate, a second generation initiate of Alpha chapter. And so it is wonderful to be on with you all tonight. And I am a former two-term chair of the Xi Omega Connections Committee. So, when y'all called, I was showing up. So I'm so glad to be here. You can follow me on social media at Joi Tweets on Twitter and Joi Grams on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn. And I'm on Facebook with most of you are on Facebook. My Facebook's not public, but the rest of it is. But you guys are my friends. I'll always accept a soror member of Xi Omega chapter or anyone else but wears the AKA banner. With that, I can't wait to, tell you more about what I do, but it is a privilege to represent the National Urban League before federal policymakers like Hope and others in Washington, D.C. I'm an alumnus of the Hill, tour alumnus of the United States Senate. It's good to be back on the outside you know, representing one of our greatest civil rights organizations before Congress and the White House. It's exciting. This is good times, hard times, but good times.
Well, thank you, Joi. And you are an important voice, and we're so appreciative that you have a seat at the table. And I am very proud to share with you that my aunt, Sonoria Johnson, was the first executive director of the Washington Bureau of the National Urban League. So I am particularly thrilled to have you here with us this evening.
And indeed, we have a boardroom named after her at the Washington Bureau, and you're welcome to come by anytime.
Well, thank you so much. So now we will go on to Di Brown, another very important person on our panel, and we would love to hear from you in 60 seconds or less. Please toot your horn and tell us about all the important things that you are doing.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here. I am also a member of Xi Omega chapter, so excited to always support the organization in general. You know, I'm originally from Louisiana, went to Howard University, got my master's at Trinity in organizational development, and I'll tell you a little bit more about how that's kind of made me who I am. But I really think what's important for people to know and just to celebrate is the work around young people. Everything I do is based on that. And so I really take my time to really celebrate them. It's important to me. I spent 8 years as executive director for Jack and Jill of America, and I'm currently spending time as senior director of regional strategy for Young Invincibles, which is focused on 18 to 34-year-olds. And you can find me on any social media at Diism, DYISM. So look forward to talking to you.
Thank you so much, Di. And I am extremely excited and proud of the work that you're doing, because that 18 to 34-year-old group is very, very important. So I'm glad that you are really, you know, connecting with that particular constituency. Very important. So this week we have witnessed history. Lord knows we've witnessed history. They made the record this week, didn't they? And it will be talked about for years to come, including now, obviously. In one word, describe what this moment means to you. What does it mean to have a Black woman on the Supreme Court? While she is a true contender when it comes to just being an attorney, a judge, an advocate, doing so many different things, it's very important that we acknowledge that she is a Black woman that will be on the Supreme Court, and we lift that up loud and proud. So I'd like to go first to Robin Nunn, if you could share again in one word to describe this moment to you and what it means to have a Black woman on the Supreme Court.
Unmute.
Robin,
Gosh, I was just saying that this is a really tough one. We're not really starting off tonight easy. I guess I would say perseverance. It's never been seriously suggested that being Black in America was, is, or will be easy. It's never been seriously suggested that being a Black woman in America was, is, or will be easy. And therefore, I guess it should come as, you know, no surprise that the Supreme Court nomination of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, one of the most highly qualified nominees in recent history, is facing serious opposition in the US Senate right now. Most of the opposition will, of course, come from the Republicans, but it should be clear that this opposition reflects a certain train of thought, a sort of viral strain really that exists in America. And this strain really presupposes the inferiority of Black Americans. So when a Black man or a Black woman achieves at a high level, that person is seen as being exceptional, out of the ordinary, and certainly not representative of the overall talent pool in the Black community. Because after all, it's not useful, so the thinking goes, to expect exceptional achievement from any Black man, woman, or child. Further, even when a Black woman or Black man does achieve, very often there is an unspoken question mark. Is this person the beneficiary of affirmative action or a lower bar of some sort for achievement, forgetting the fact that legacy admissions to elite colleges have been the inheritance of white girls and boys for centuries? it seems like there's always a reason why the qualifications of a Black woman or a Black man must be questioned or praised as being exceptional from the perspective of race, rather than being exceptional from the perspective of humanity. Just thinking about Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, we really see the racist myopia really playing out, and see that we still, have to deal with this. The fact that she graduated from Harvard University and Harvard Law School should make her credentials bulletproof. Instead, they really represent a bullseye that we're seeing for those who would question her credentials by the use of a false lens of affirmative action. The fact that she graduated with honors seems to make no difference to the likes of certain individuals and never will. The fact never will make a difference because the basic proposition of white supremacy and Black inferiority is sort of ever present in the American intellectual bloodstream. And there really seems to be no way to immunize the vast portion of that American bloodstream. And we've obviously seen that George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, various cases this year over the recent years that have really kind of put this in full scale for all of us. But arguably more obvious are the ways that this sort of virus presents itself in corporate America, which is, where I sort of exist, and I know others do, where we cannot even find 5 Black women or Black men to be CEOs in the Fortune 500. And even in the American electorate, which I know we're going to talk about soon, where we can only find 3 Black people out of the 100 to serve in the United States Senate. As we sit here tonight. Now, I know I've only got one word, and so I'll wrap up here. But I think we're really watching the members of the US Senate try to, denigrate the qualification and abilities and experiences and expertise of Ketanji Brown Jackson while claiming that they're being fair. And it's really been a baptism by fire. But I choose the word perseverance because I think at the end of the day, while this is not a fair fight, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson will prevail, and we will see our first African-American Supreme Court Justice very soon.
Thank you, Robin. I just want to make the comment that I think that you're right when it comes to African-Americans being considered for various positions, whether it's in the government or corporate America, even academia and other places. We are scrutinized, highly scrutinized. And one thing that seems to be apparent these days is, while we can say there's a majority on one side and, that might scrutinize folks in one way and other folks who may not, it seems to still be apparent that it can be across the board, regardless of affiliation. People can scrutinize Black people more so than other folks. And I think that's really important for us to keep in mind, because it really does shine a light on where Black people stand in society still today, right? So let me go to Joi next, and then we'll go to Di and Hope. And remember, one word with a few little other words afterward.
Well, there were 2 takeaways from this hearing: persevere and joy. And so Robin used persevere. I'm going to use joy with a Y. And like Senator Booker, nothing that happens on the Republican side of the aisle is going to limit my joy about this nomination. And I look forward to talking more about it.
Thank you so much. So let's go to Di next.
Thanks. I'm going to use the word nonpareil, and it really means like no other. This is a moment in history that so many women, men, our young adults, our children are going to look at and remember forever. And so it really is no moment like this. And I'm really excited about it.
Thank you so much. And Hope?
I'll say
Hope, your name by itself is one word.
Right. But I'm going to say transformational. It is transformational for our country. It is time that our judiciary begins to look like America. I could go on about how we would love to see the United States Senate look more representational of America, but you asked me about the hearings. and it is time for the judiciary to look like America. And I am glad to see Judge Brown Jackson there to transform the United States Supreme Court. She already let us know that she has a command of the Constitution and a command of the law, and we look forward to her swift confirmation.
Thank you. So that was really great, ladies, and I appreciate it. And the reason I emphasize some things is because, we are looking at what we know as a group, as Black women, what we see every day in our workspace, in our social arenas, in our communities, how we've been perceived and received. But also it's important for us to know that we have a cross section of people who are listening to this, and civic engagement is at the heart of all of this. So civic engagement and advocating for Black women to really have a seat at the table. And that seat can be in any one of those positions, whether it's Democrat, again, independent, or conservative, or Republican. So let me say, Black women have always been on the front lines of the civil rights and social justice movements. We've seen incremental gains in Black women's political leadership from the growing number of Black women running and winning elected offices. Robin, can you please share with us why you decided to run for office?
That's a good question. I'll be brief. I had been one of those people who always sort of worked in the background on campaigns. I had the good fortune of going to the University of Chicago Law School and having Professor Barack Obama at that time. So I worked in the background on his Senate campaign. Before that, I went to college in New Hampshire and often worked on a number of campaigns because New Hampshire was sort of a center of activity. Even now, I'm the treasurer on the DC mayoral campaign for Robert White. So I've always cared a lot about the outcome of elections, but I never really saw myself as a candidate. I've always had a pretty busy career, and sort of putting away volunteer activities and career always seemed like a tough decision for me to make. And I kept trying to recruit great people to run from time to time and work with them and canvass for them. And finally, the finger started pointing in the other direction, and people began asking, why are you asking me? Why don't you run? And I guess I got to a point where it bothered me more that the outcome would be bad. If I wasn't done right, it bothered me more than I was being scared to run. So that helped me get over that barrier of putting myself out there, knowing that I wanted to be part of a positive outcome and have a transparent, local government.
Well, so I really like that, you saw your place in making a difference, and, you chose to do a career in public service. So let me ask you briefly, what does public service mean to you? There are many politicians who they do it for the title, they do it for the exposure, they do it for, they also do it for their community. But also, what does it mean to be connected to the community? That's why I love that you're ANC, because it's like right there with the neighbors, talking with them and their direct interest and everything. So what does that mean to you to serve on that level, and to be a public servant?
Yeah, I always felt really connected to the community in general, but especially during this time of the pandemic, and after the murder of George Floyd and a number of other activities, I felt really like I wanted to get out there with my local community and help in any way that I can. And as you sort of alluded, Advisory Neighborhood Commission is sort of the front line, so to speak, in terms of working directly with your neighbors and city council and businesses and local government to enact change. And that was really important to me. I wanted to roll up my sleeves and do the work and be a part of the community. As I mentioned in the intro, I'm originally from the DMV area, so this is home for me. So it was really important to me that in this time that's been so troubling for so many, that I do my part. My seat was vacant. There was no one serving, and I ran because I wanted to be a part of the solution.
Well, I deeply appreciate you. What comes to mind for me is thinking of Fannie Lou Hamer going door to door and talking to all those various sharecroppers. And so I appreciate all the work that you're doing and making sure that things, that you make a difference. So storytelling is something that Black women have done since the beginning of time. It is how we've been able to share our story, our history from one generation to the next. Those circles, sisterhood circles that we pass on life lessons generation after generation. When you think about it, the art of storytelling is the foundation of the art of advocacy. Creating lasting social change requires us to make an investment in our future. You have been leading in this space for quite some time. How important is it that we empower young leaders to use their voices to share their stories to impact change in their communities?
Thanks. So I think you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned just the importance of us sharing from generation to generation. So often we forget that the true role of a storyteller is to teach the next storyteller, because that's the only way the story continues. And so it's something that, you really learn to love and teach young adults. You learn, at just the smallest age, stories of your family, stories of church. You share with people the importance when we really think about the African-American community and sharing the work that we're doing, sharing, the impact that we can have on society, and being able to help people understand that every story doesn't have to be from 0 to 100. It's your story. And I think that that's so important. I remember, when I was with Jack and Jill, and I had a team president that said, there's nothing that I have to share. And I said, everything about your life is meaningful. Everything about your life is a story, and a story that continues. And it was simply their way of saying they didn't think that they were as cool or as hip as someone else's story. And I think it's important that we really embrace our younger generation to understand that advocacy can look different. Everybody has a different role in the movement. Everybody's not going to be marching. Everybody's not going to be writing briefs. Everybody's not going to be talking to the media, but it really is a moment for you to find out how you can allow your life, your family's life, to continue that story.
I really like that. The thing that comes to mind for me, and I'm not trying to drive home, all of these different affiliations people can have, but I do think it's important. Civic education is vastly important. How you use your voice and how you tell a story is really important to get points across. And so what you're doing is not only teaching young people about understanding, their world, you're also teaching them about how to be an advocate, how to find their voice, and how to tell their own story. Now, with that in mind, it makes you think of there's a diversity of people. So you could be developing a young person who wants to be, I apologize, I'm forgetting the gentleman's name, Michael Steele. Or you could be someone developing, the next Ron Brown. Or you could be somebody who's developing the next Ketanji Brown Jackson. So I think that's really, really important that it covers everyone's interest. It's a skill set to understand and know how to be an advocate, how to tell our story, and to understand our civic history. So how early can one become an advocate?
Yeah, so I'll answer that question, but I'll also make one point, just so that people remember, storytelling is a skill, as you said, and it's a skill that deserves to be practiced consistently. And people forget that. So it's key. And when you think about how early, the moment you start talking, literally the moment you start talking, because if you think about it, the kindergartner or the preschooler that is just wanting some juice instead of water, they need to be able to advocate for that juice instead of water. And that's something so simple when you think about advocacy. But, you think about our young adults at Young Invincibles, and they're 18 to 34-year-olds who are focused on healthcare reform, focused on higher education. We're having the fight of our lives right now with fighting for canceling student debt. But it's important for them to be able to share their stories, to understand, and to help the people that are actually voting and making these laws to understand what they are impacted by. And so it's important. You've got to continue to hone that skill set in. But like I said, it really is the moment you start talking. And the best way that we can continue, just as people in general, is to never underestimate a young person. Never underestimate them, because that young person is the one that is the next Judge Ketanji Brown. That is that person. And so it's so important for us to really share our knowledge, to be able to, push energy into our young adults and to really allow them to shine their light.
Thank you so much, Di. And I really love what you said. Everyone has a story to tell. So thank you. So we're in unprecedented times as we work to recover from COVID-19, rebuild our economy, unite a politically and racially polarized nation, and address racial inequality across issues from healthcare, criminal justice, and education to policing. And all of those issues are important to everyone, but particularly important to minority communities and African Americans in particular. So Joi, your role is one that is critical when it comes to ensuring that our communities have the resources and tools across the country to effectively advocate for our desire to live in economically thriving, educated, healthy, and safe communities on a grassroots and grass top level. You currently serve under the legacy of Sonoria Johnson, as I mentioned, and
Ron Brown, which you also mentioned.
Yes,
also,
and you know what? She mentored a woman, mentored Ron Brown. So she mentored Ron Brown. So it's very important. And how important is individual and collective advocacy?
Oh, I mean, it's very important. So, we know individual advocacy is important, but the collective is powerful and impactful. And sometimes it's hard because everyone has their own issues, so to speak, and many of us act like we're our own Supreme Court justice, right? Where my dissent is really important. On that court, it is really important. But when we're talking about on math, it is important to find commonality with others and speak with a unified voice. As all of us know who've worked on the Hill, the question is who supports it, who wants it. And they're not looking to know what one person wants it. They want to know what group en masse wants it, right? What group is willing to put that priority above all other priorities, right? And so that's tough. But it is required in order to get things done, right? You have to put all of your weight, your political capital, everything, your credibility behind a topic. And that means at the expense of some others. You just can't get it all done. And so, yeah, I mean, when I say collective action, yes, everyone rowing in the same direction, it's really important. And I think we don't always do it enough. Sometimes we think, oh, well, someone else will do it, or, we wait. Perhaps sometimes if it's on an issue on voting rights, many times you can get collective action about that. But there may be other things that one needs collective action on that might actually, have a greater chance. Sometimes it's about deciding what's the thing that collective action actually works on. So I would say it's really important. And that's why civil rights works. Legacy organizations like the NAACP, like the National Action Network, like the Black Women's Roundtable or the National Council of Negro Women or the National Urban League are so important. Like Alpha Kappa Alpha, the Links, the Deltas, all of those organizations are important. And I think you've been seeing us use our voice, Jack and Jill, use our voice more effectively and coming together, understanding that we are so much greater than the sum of our individual parts. And that whatever our individual issues are, they really cannot be advanced until we all do some things together that are impactful. And the benefit of organizations with chapters or affiliates or members is that typically those groups they already understand the belief in corporate action. And so they're willing, if you say, hey, you need to go out there and do X, they will do X, right? And they'll do it in the way you said. This is really important. So when the sorority says, we want you to make a call about whatever it is the sorority wants you to make a call about, we really are counting on you to do just that. And it's that because that's what members are looking for. They are looking for people who come with the weight of constituencies behind them.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That's a great answer. And it just brings to mind for me For example, the National Negro Business League that had the National Black Retailers, the National Black Bankers, the National Black Funeral Directors, and it was under a larger umbrella. But under all these many different umbrellas, even like the National Panhellenic Council, when they all come together, it really does show strength in numbers to really push for change. So really, really important. So let me ask you really quickly, what does it mean to call or write my senator? And do they read my letter?
They may not read your individual letter, but they read all the letters together. So they know if they're getting hundreds or thousands of emails that are about the same thing. They're very much aware of that, right? So a lot of us on various channels are reaching out, and we're contacting our senator in support of Ketanji Brown Jackson. And that's a bipartisan effort, a 501c3 effort. But they understand that when they get a massive number of people, or if you haven't gotten to the stage where you're calling your senator or not, but you're part of an organization that says my organization supports a particular bill, either way, can be very impactful. But in order to get those votes across the finish line, you have to have calls into those offices. And when the member says, how many people supported? How many people called me? You want to be able to have the staffer be able to give an answer. The other thing is you have to call even people that already support what you are supporting, right? You want them to know not only should they sponsor it, that's easy, but they should vote for it, and they should push for it, and they should get it on the floor.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for all of that insight. So if there was ever a moment when Black women's leadership was needed, the time is now, as we are working to change the face of our democracy. Hope, how important is it that we have Black women on Capitol Hill, not only as elected leaders, but as members of their staff, and importantly, in leadership role? So if you could just expound on that a little bit, how important is it for Black women's voices to be heard when policy and legislation is being created? But again, also just the presence on the Hill, not only in leadership positions that we see in front of the camera, for example, the congressional members, the senators, but also their support staff and other folks. So if you could just expound a little bit on that, that would be wonderful.
So you're probably not seeing the people that write the bill on camera. And that is where, or the people that have negotiated the policy on camera, or the people that are in the room with the outside organizations or with the executive branch. Those are the people that are in the room driving the policy agenda, hearing from the advocacy organizations such as Alpha Kappa Alpha or Young Invincibles or the National Urban League. And they put those things together to give them to the members of Congress. It is extremely important. I am a policymaker. I lead a congressional committee, and it's extremely important to have Black women on congressional committees or on member office staff, because we bring our perspective. I will just give a point of reference. In my committee, we have legislated on nonprofit security grants for churches and historically Black colleges. I'm a historically Black college graduate, and I was there to demonstrate and discuss with the FBI and with DHS why we needed more money when there were bomb threats at HBCUs, and the unique nature of the HBCUs, especially the HBCU that I attended, Tougaloo College, why it wasn't just another bomb threat, the historic nature. As you saw, the House just passed the Crown Act a few days ago. That was led by a lot of outside advocacy organizations and outside advocates, and sponsored by a member of Congress, by a House member, to actually get to the floor and go across the finish line. But having those Black women there, the trajectory of the Crown Act actually put the bill at front and center at the House Judiciary Committee, had several members of Congress thinking about things in ways that they did not think about them before. That's when I said that Judge Brown Jackson, her nomination was transformative and transformational for our country. Having Black women on staff in the United States Congress and in the House and the Senate, especially on committees where we do the bill writing and the policy making, is transformational as well. We bring a different perspective, but we also bring the perspective of America. Several things that I've worked on or that other people have worked on, there are people in sections of America that are benefiting from legislation that Black women write that we'll never know their names. They'll never meet us to tell us thank you. They may not even really like us. But the thing is that we have that type of perspective, and we have that type of perspective that where we think of ourselves and we think of others and we think about that little Black girl 2,000 or 3,000 miles away.
Thank you so much. It's very important, particularly what you said. That last comment, one of the things that comes to mind for me are some of the communities, for example, that are dealing with poor water issues and other matters that transcend race, that transcend party, that transcend, so many things. And the advocacy work that many Black people do is a benefit to all. It truly is. But it is very important that we are focused, mindful, insightful about the things that can be done to particularly help the African American community, and that we are always present in the room, right? So it's really great to have all of you ladies on here. You all have provided great insight, and I've got to think of the one word for each of you. So when I think about the ANC, and I think about grassroots, and I think about Robin, and again, I'll say what comes to mind for me is Fannie Lou Hamer on the ground, right? When I think of Joi and I think of the National Urban League, and I see my Aunt Nora, and I understand putting on those pearls and that hat and those gloves and walking into those corporate business meetings, into the White House, and making a difference, and forming coalitions for change. When I think of Di Brown and being in front of young people, 18 to 34-year-olds, that's a pivotal moment in people's lives where they're actually finding their voices. Think of those college students that are the world's opening up to them, but even those who don't go to college, that they're finding their voices and they're figuring out what their story is and how they need to tell it, because what happens to them happens to others. And then when I think of hope, the word that comes to mind is your name. So your name. And then I think of how excited I am about the fact that you were telling a story within that book that you have written, and more to come, and the work that you're doing on a daily basis to make change. But very, very important, your emphasis on civic education. We can't stress that enough. An informed constituency is very, very important when it comes to making decisions about the future of our world. So I want to applaud all of you ladies. Thank you so much for bringing your voices to the table. Let me ask a few questions before we go. If you could leave us with one piece of advice, what would it be? I'm going to go to Robin first.
Oh my gosh. Stay active, stay connected. I think that we have heard from some really inspirational folks tonight. And I know all of us are deeply engaged. But, much like Ketanji, stay the course and persevere and continue to do all the hard work that I know that we're all doing.
Thank you so much, Robin. And so now I'm going to throw it over to, I'm going to mix it up a little bit. So let's go to Di next.
Thanks. I think the one piece of advice that I would leave everybody with is commit to sharing your story, but even bigger than that, commit to reaching back to the generation behind you. So it's a simple message, but so important. It's the only way that we will continue to move forward and continue to progress.
Thank you so much. And so Hope, I'm going to go to you next, and then we'll end on Joi.
I'm similar to Robin. Stay engaged. Even if you don't think it affects you, it probably does. Stay engaged and stay vigilant. And if there is ever a cause that you feel that someone isn't taking up that is important to you and your family, begin the advocacy work.
Yeah, thank you. And then Joi.
So for me, I want you to donate to a candidate of your choosing at whatever level of government you would like to, who you think will represent your values. Most of the things you don't have in Congress are because there are not enough people fighting for it. And so I want you to do that. I think it is incredibly important. Reserve some funding and some money to donate. These candidates need it, and they need it every quarter, not just once per election cycle.
Thank you so much. So the last question is extremely important because I'm looking at all of you and you look beautiful on camera, but I know you put in work. And that said, sometimes we're so focused on making sure that we create change, and we will sacrifice so much so that we can see that change happen. So my last question to you is, what are your personal sustainability self-care practices and what brings you joy? So with that, I'm going to start with Joi.
You'd have to define those terms for me. I'm unfamiliar with them. Honestly, there's a season for everything. So right now, relaxation and self-care is not my season, but I actually do go to a CrossFit class with my husband occasionally, whenever I can find time. But this is my season and I'm in it, and I don't want to pretend like, oh, I have it all figured out and I have it all balanced. I do not. But it's my season. I'm here and I'm at the table and I'm making a difference, and that's good enough for me. And when it's not my season, I'll be off the grid.
Thank you. So Di, let's go to you next.
So Joi is right in the sense of that, there's a season for everything. I do strongly believe that there is a very powerful word. It's called no. We need to use it more often. We need to embrace that, because we can't be strong for everybody around us if we're not strong for ourselves. And I think that that's something that it takes time, it takes effort to find that balance. But no is important. That is something I have learned very much so in the last 6 months to a year. I also do die days. I have been very welcomed at my current organization, and we now do mental health Mondays. And so once a month, we take a Monday that we just really embrace it. So just a reminder, no is okay. Your mental health is important for self-care.
Thank you. A very important word, a very simple word. And then let's go to Hope and then close with Robin.
I move. I make sure that I do some type of movement. Even if I'm on a contentious call, I might have to move around while I am listening. I have actually been a part of Peloton since 2017, so for a very long time. I'm a Capitol Belle. Right now, you might not catch me on the leaderboard because I play lane break a lot. But I make sure to do some type of movement. So that's what I do for self-care. I move.
Sounds good. Thank you. And Robin, you'll have the last word.
Well, I would agree with everything that my co-panelists have said, from moving to not really having balance, to saying no more, are things that I'm working on. I have recently learned about acupuncture and massage and a whole lot of other wellness tools, and I'm trying to drink more tea. I think the key is sort of doing whatever feels right to you. And while I love learning how to surf and play tennis and golf and skiing and things like that, that's not always been the easiest thing to do in current environments. But catching up with friends and family, I think, is really important, and catching up with your source is also important. So I think doing what makes you happy has been sort of my my key and forgiving myself when I fall short.
Well, thank you so much. And ladies, it has been a pleasure being in conversation with you, with Robin Nunn, with Joi Chaney, with Di Brown, with Hope Goins. You all have dropped so many pearls of wisdom. You really provided thoughtful, thought-provoking commentary. And I know that many people are going to follow up to follow you if they haven't already started doing so today, but to follow you moving forward. And I have to tell you, you know, working in the National Museum of African American History and Culture, listening to all of you, I think of folks like Queen Nzinga, who fought against her own people being enslaved during the transatlantic slave trade. I think of people like Phyllis Wheatley, who wrote to a Native American minister during the time of the Revolutionary War, Samson Akam, and she called out that liberty is something that pants in the heart of all of us. And I think of folks like Harriet Tubman, who here we are, you know, celebrating the 200th anniversary of her birthday, and how she was not only an advocate, which we all know, for ending slavery, but also for women's rights. And then I think of folks like Ida B. Wells, and I think of folks, particularly the women who were in the Federation of Colored Women's Clubs. But then I also think of people during the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, people like Marva Collins, who pushed for education for young Black children in Chicago. People like, of course, Rosa Parks, who we talk about, but so many others, you know, even young people. We just got through talking about you could start at any age. And you think of the young people who took to the schools, who had to show that, yes, schools should be integrated and that we are walking through those doors. Think of young people like Ruby Bridges. You guys are the manifestation of all the work that these people did. You all have picked up the mantle and you are running with it. And I know from hearing you tonight that you were running with intention and purpose, and you were looking out for the next generation so you can hand off that torch. Again, it has been a pleasure to join you tonight to moderate this important conversation. Black women's activism is rooted in the community. Programs like this one tonight allow us to invite our friends, family, colleagues, church members, and sorority sisters to come together in community and conversation, regardless of age, regardless of party affiliation, regardless of where you grew up. It's all a conversation to discuss key issues and policies that are important to us as Black women in our communities. Thank you again for joining us tonight. Lakila, I am happy to turn over the program back to you, and thank you for bringing all of us together at this time. Round of applause to all of our presenters. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Ladies, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us tonight. Your expertise and input is invaluable. And as always, it's definitely been a pleasure to be in community and conversation with you. Thank you to my Xi Omega president, our Xi Omega president, Raven L. Hill, our Connection and Social Action Committee members, our technology and PR teams for all of their assistance with tonight's programming. We truly hope that you've been inspired by our dynamic moderator and our panelists, and we look forward to actually watching you use your voice to lead and make a difference in your community. I am now going to turn this over to actually, I'm going to close it out. My apologies real fast, but thank you so much again for joining us. We look forward to you joining our next program. I've dropped inside the chat our social media pages. Please stay in touch with us, stay in contact with us, so you'll be the first one to know about our community events. Thank you all, and we look forward to seeing you the next time. And remember, your voice is your power. Have a great evening. Thank you.